Okay, everybody, you are in for such a treat today because I brought on my friend, Alex Jamieson. You know, I've known her for a couple of years, but when I heard about her book, her new book, coming that just came out, I believe it just came out. How long has it been
It's
available?
been a week,
Oh,
1 week.
a week! I said, we just have to bring her in so she can share all about it. I read it, I loved it, and now here she is. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me, Debbie. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about having tough conversations so everyone wins. And what I love about that is in the betrayal community, so often it's not easy to have those challenging conversations. There's so much hurt. There's so much anger. There's so much pain. And what I love about one of the things I remember reading, you said, this is so you prevent a lot of this. This is so this is the work you do a lot of times before these things happen, so it prevents it.
Yeah.
So tell us what you mean, and I also want to dive into what you mean by aim and all of it. So we could start there.
Great. Well, let me just say that this covers so many different experiences of betrayal that learning how to have tough conversations wasn't something I really mastered until my late 30s. I'm now in my mid 40s, and it took me my entire adult life so far to see what was in the way, like why I felt so challenged and why I avoided tough conversations so often. And it really started for me. I was 3 years old when my family was riddled with trauma and suicides, and we have lots of mental health issues and addiction in our family. So that kind of like childhood betrayal, like it feels like a betrayal when your parents, and God bless them, like they had their own mental health challenges to get through, so they couldn't be there for me as a young child and teenager growing up. So I was kind of figuring out how to be a person on my own in some ways.
And before you even get into that, so here you are, you're a little kid, you're looking at your parents, and it's so hard to make sense and meaning out of this. What did you assume? I mean, what was the interpretation that you had, and how did that lead to, having challenges with these conversations because of it?
I didn't have words for it. It's only in retrospect that I can tell you what I assumed.
Mm,
But I assumed that my mother was volatile and dangerous to upset, because she lost her sister and her father to suicide within a couple of years when I was 3 years old.
yeah.
So she was going through a serious mental health breakdown. So I assumed that I had to take care of myself,
Mhm.
and I had to take care of my own problems, figure out my own answers, and rarely, if ever, go to anyone of authority for assistance. So I was the people pleasing, perfectionistic, good girl, type A, gold star student.
Mm. So at what point did you realize this just isn't working for me?
um, well, I really started my own self health journey at around 18. Right when I went away to college, and I had a little space and freedom to myself. Like I took myself to therapy in
Mhm.
college.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until going through my divorce in my early 30s with a toddler in tow that I started to see how my inability to talk about tough topics had led to so much betrayal in my relationship. And I started to connect the dots backward, like, oh, this is a pattern.
And what did you do instead? So here you wanted to have these conversations, or you were, you felt that something wasn't right, didn't feel right, didn't feel aligned. What did you do instead? And do you remember how you felt that? Because, the reason why I'm asking is there are so many listeners right now who are saying, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing.
So, what was I doing instead of
Mm-hmm.
having tough conversations? Just avoiding them. I was the smoother over.
Mm-hmm.
In my family, my entire life, and in my first marriage, I was the diplomat. And I could read the room, and I didn't even know I was so good at it until my first marriage started breaking down, which was, oh, like energetically, I can read the room of who needs what before they even know what they need. And by the way, I mean, I assumed that I can mind read, and I'm not always correct, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to keep everybody calm so that we don't go into, emotional mood swings in the family.
And you know what's so interesting? So many of my listeners and viewers can absolutely relate to what you're saying, but it's not without a price. Because
Yes.
look at the price you're paying for that. You're not speaking up. You're not speaking your truth. You're not saying if something isn't working for you. Boundaries get crossed. I mean, the list is endless.
Yeah. And it's exhausting.
It's exhausting, sure. And then there's the health component. When that's going on, how do you not have physical, mental, emotional symptoms? It's nearly impossible.
Yeah. So in my mid 30s, I came down with a whole host of health issues, including hypothyroid, complete they say adrenal fatigue. I'm like, it wasn't adrenal fatigue, it was like adrenal like destruction.
Yeah, yeah.
Had nothing left because I was so good at and constantly exerting my energies out into the world and not even asking, what do I need? I didn't have any needs. That was my thing.
And you know what's so interesting? Think about it. What's so interesting, and I find this particularly with women, we know the needs of every single other person in our care and reach. And when it comes to ourselves, we're clueless. So often it's like, well, I don't know. I never even asked myself that question. Isn't that
Yeah.
so? It's like so crazy. Why is it that we know the needs of our partners, of our children, and we just have no clue what is it that we need. So okay, so you realize this is what's going on. Now you're paying the physical price for it. So now your adrenals have tanked. So you're exhausted. You're having all the other issues that come along with adrenal fatigue. What happened next?
Well, actually, that's about the time that I met my second husband. And luckily, he had been on his own journey. He had done a lot of work on himself, and he was able to do what wasn't available in my first marriage. He's able to self-reflect. He's able to, he was in the same inquiry that I was, which was, how am I showing up that's causing these things to happen over and over again in my life? And how can I stop beating the crap out of myself all the time about it while simultaneously healing and doing better?
Mm.
So in this was a very different relationship. Bob and I have been together now for about 8 years, and we we decided very early, even as we were dating, we do not want to replicate the terrible relationship dynamics of the past, which required brave, courageous, uncomfortable conversations.
And what I love about that is it's a decision. It's a decision. This is not something that just happens by default. This is conscious choosing to do things differently. And that's how
Together.
together, and that's how something changes, right? And so often I think what I see is that we're just sort of unconsciously going through things, and we're numbing, avoiding, distracting when it's uncomfortable. But here it is. You have this opportunity in this new relationship to say, hey, you know what? Let's choose a different path, a different way to go through this based on what you've both experienced and what you want to experience together. So that led to the idea of these conscious conversations.
Yeah. So he was a design and tech consultant. And I had been a health coach at that point for about 12 years. It's been about 21 years for me now in the coaching field. And we started to realize as we got to know each other better that, oh my gosh, there's a lot of overlap in how we help people. Even though he's helping tech teams and startup companies and I'm helping one-on-one clients, there's some similar tools that we're using here. Basically, we help people get clear about what they need, what their challenges are, and what steps to do to get forward to what they want. So we actually held on the request of a couple of friends, we held a couple of couples workshops. And there were these wonderful but small workshops where basically women were like dragging their boyfriends or husbands to the
Mm-hmm,
workshop.
mm-hmm.
And we realized, oh, couples are coming, but the two people in the couple are coming for very different reasons. We need to discover and make clear why they are here and what they want out of this as individuals and as a couple. So we created this little 4-step conversation in order to get the room clear about why everybody was there and what they wanted.
And I loved, yeah, and I loved it. It was, I forgot, I believe it was chapter 8, where you go through the different examples of sending your child to school. Have, when you're going to get married, going on a trip, moving, you had all these amazing examples of using it. So if you could tell us what those 4 things are and how you'd apply it, I'd love that.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, this was the one tool that people kept asking for over and over again after these workshops. So we're like, okay, this is a thing. So the 4-step conversation is, first, there's a little tiny bit of setting the stage before you get into the 4 steps. First of all, decide what the one topic is you're talking about. That one piece is so relaxing to my nervous system. I'm like, oh, we're not going to go all over the place, and we're not going to relitigate the past of every mistake I've ever made in my relationship. We're going to talk about this one topic. Going to visit my mother-in-law for a vacation. We're going to talk about our finances this quarter. Like, right, you pick a topic.
And I love when you did that. You used that example. I believe it was Justin who was going to see his mom. He didn't want his mom to talk about his tattoos or whatever it was. And it's in that one, having that one intention to bring to that conversation. It's just a smoother way of going about it. It doesn't sort of ignite, well, all the other years of things you want to talk about.
And by the way, this is a really good red flag to look for. If your conversation partner isn't willing to have a conversation with you with these basic rules, we're going to stick to a topic, we're not going to talk over each other, and we're going to share equally. Like, I get 2 minutes, you get 2 minutes. We're going to go back. And if they're not willing to agree to that fairness, then it's a really good indication that there's manipulation happening, or that they are not ready to meet you in good faith.
Mm. And that's a really good point too. You mentioned the speaker and the listener, and I remember reading how there are roles. The speaker's supposed to do certain things, and the listener's supposed to do certain things.
Yeah.
Can you share what is best case scenario for what the listener should be doing, what the speaker should be doing? And then I'd love to get into a few examples.
Great. So it's 2 very simple concepts. Listen with curiosity, right? Don't listen to form an argument against. This process is a discovery process, not a problem-solving process. This is discovering where you might be in alignment or out of alignment. So listen with curiosity and speak with courage. Be vulnerable as you can feel safe being. And go just a little bit further and being a little bit more revealing of who you are and what you feel about something.
And I remember you said, if it feels a little bit scary, that's how you know you're on the right track, because being vulnerable is terrifying. And I know it in my book that's coming out as well. There's my story there, and it's terrifying, but it's in going that little bit of extra. That's when we know we're making that difference for whoever needs it. So it's being courageous, being vulnerable, and then what does the other person do?
So the listener is only listening. You are only like you are trying to learn as much about the other person's stance as possible. There's something called tactical empathy. Tactical empathy means you aren't listening, you aren't agreeing with what the other person feels. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to understand them. Mm-hmm. So that's the best place to start this from.
And when I think of empathy, I picture sort of sympathy is, here you are at the top of the mountain looking down at the person who fell. Hey, you doing okay down there? And empathy is going down there and saying, hey, I got you. I get this. I'm with you.
Right.
And, yeah. So let's say both of you are on board. The listener knows their role. The speaker knows their role. Can you go through the four steps?
So the 4 steps are, and I'll go into them deeper in a second, you each share in turn your intentions, concerns, boundaries, and dreams about this topic you've agreed to talk about. So your intentions are your why. And usually this is the shortest, most succinct. Like, we're doing this thing, we're going to visit your mom so that we, it may be out of obligation. Like, I feel obliged to do this, or I just really need to get out of the house for the weekend. Like, really simple top line stuff. But if you need a little bit richer question, Your intentions could be, how does this thing help me live my values?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So family, maybe one of your strongest values. I believe that family time is important.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you each share your intentions for this thing. Then you each share your concerns, fears, and worries. This is usually the easiest for the human brain to come up with. And we really encourage you to put on the table, again, as in a way that feels safest to you in the context and with the person that you're sharing with. But we really encourage you, like, all the fears, put them all out there, because there's some really good evidence. And we talked to our friend, Dr. Srini Pillay, who's a Harvard trained neuroscientist. He's like, look, when you speak your fears out loud and you hear them spoken out loud by yourself, and it's received in a safe space, it actually calms the amygdala and your nervous system can chill out.
I can see that, and I can also see how so often we may be reacting to something because we don't even know that there's fear, but we don't know what that fear is. And it's almost like in expressing it, we have an opportunity to say, oh, wow, I didn't even know I felt that. But yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and we encourage you to recognize that the brain can really go off in some wild directions with fears and
Mm-hmm.
worries. Most of my fears and worries end up in the same place. Me dying alone, penniless under a bridge. That's my ultimate fear about everything.
Well, there you have it, everybody.
So it's okay. And in my second marriage to Bob, it's such a huge difference to be able to really share all my fears and worries and know that he's not going to take it personally, even if it involves us. Like, okay, I have this fear, and oh, that's not really going to happen, but it's what my brain does, and it's been put out there. So now it can just go away. The brain just goes, okay, that's managed, and it stops worrying about it. That often happens. So then you go into your boundaries. And I know you are such an expert on this, Debbie. So I know that this is challenging because most of us have never been asked what they are or taught how to have them. So I ask you to consider them as starter boundaries. They don't have to be perfectly formed. But there's 2 questions you can ask to help you come up with your boundaries. And you're not ordering off a menu, you're not demanding, you're doing your best to answer these 2 questions. What do I need to be my best in this situation? And what do I need to feel safe? So 2 different energetic directions. And I'll give the example of going to visit my in-laws. My boundaries have become, over time, we only stay 2 nights, right? It doesn't become this long, drawn out thing. We stay in a hotel, not with family. I don't drink alcohol while I'm there at all, because even 1 glass of wine and I get irritable and cranky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I need alone time every day. I need 1 hour by myself to go for a walk or just go to Starbucks and sit by myself.
This is so important because boundaries getting crossed is one of the most common things I see all the time. And reclaiming those boundaries can be so challenging because it's so unfamiliar. So I love how you're giving us this framework. And just so I got it right, you're saying the boundaries, the questions you want to ask: what do I need to be my best in this situation? And what do I need to feel safe? I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And when we share them with our partner or with our family or team member, then the other person knows, again, you may not get everything you want, but you might.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know how to take care of each other. And you can check in with each other. Hey, how's that? How are you doing on that thing that you said was important to you? It creates very clear ways to take care of each other.
Love that. And I want you to get to at what's next after boundaries. But I just have this other question too. When you're going through it, does the speaker say all 4 of their things and the listener listens, or is it one for one?
So it goes, person A shares their intentions, person B shares their intention.
Okay,
Person A shares their concerns, person B. So it goes back and forth.
got it. Okay, so it is fluid and it is like a conversation, and I'm sure what happens is there's such it's interesting because I'm sure one person is saying something that the other person, maybe it's the same exact intention. Maybe it is so totally different and you're getting to know each other on such a deeper level.
Absolutely. And we really encourage you. We still do this ourselves. We actually get out our phone and we set the timer for 3 minutes apiece. And it gives you space. Because my husband is a verbal processor, so he needs to talk it out to get clear. I actually often need to sit for about 20 seconds to get my words straight, and then I can speak them out loud. So it gives you space, and it gives you, again, this kind of safe cushion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I've got 3 minutes to speak and the other person's not going to talk. We'll just be quiet if I need to think for 20 seconds. That's fine.
Yeah, beautiful. So we got through boundaries, and then what's next?
The final piece is my favorite, and we actually redesigned it to have dreams at the end. Dreams is like putting a big bow on this process. If this were to go amazingly well, this vacation, this project, this event, what would be true? Like, how will you feel at the end of it? What would be true for me? What do I want to be true for you, for us as a team, for the community around us, for the world? Like, you really start to release oxytocin together,
Mm-hmm.
which is so important.
The cuddle hormone, yes.
Right? It biochemically gets you like reconnected if there's been a little friction earlier, but it also gets you thinking more expansively. And it's often really useful to hear somebody else's dreams, because I challenge you to not want that for them. Like, if you hear somebody else's dreams, you'd be like, oh yeah, like I want that for you too. And now you want my dreams for me. And that's when you start going into, if you need to problem solve about a specific topic that was revealed earlier, now you're a team.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll figure it out with more empathy and concern and respect for each other.
I love that. Now, here's the reality of some people, what they may be facing, that they may have the best of intentions and go into it with their partner, friend, coworker, whoever, and they're met with defensiveness, aggressiveness, whatever. What happens then?
So I love the Gottman four horsemen of the relationship apocalypse, right? It's defensiveness, stonewalling, all of those. Listen, you may have defensiveness come up in this process. There's a couple of things that I know to be true. One is that you can only meet somebody as far as they're willing to meet you. There are people who I have tried to approach people with this conversation structure about really big, important topics with people I've known for years, and they are immediately defensive, and I haven't even gotten into the conversation with them. And that just may be a hold, like, okay, we can't talk about this, or I'm not willing, like, I need you to meet me in this context to talk about it so we can be more productive around it. And honestly, you can only really connect with someone in a productive way if they're willing to meet you in good faith. I said that before and I say it again, because if you're really willing to be changed by each other and truly listen to and open your heart to each other, great. But if you're not, then I don't know what conversation structure is going to help.
Right. And you said so many amazing things. Willingness, I mean, I talk about it all the time. Willingness is such a needle mover in just about everything, because if there is no willingness to heal, to have a conversation, to do whatever it is, nothing is going to change. And it's also a great measure if you see this person is unwilling to come to this in the same way that let's say you are. Would it be helpful to have a different topic you're bringing with them first, just to sort of try it out?
Well, I'll tell you two things that I've discovered which are really helpful. One is I use this process by myself before I even invite somebody to the conversation. So I will journal out my intentions, concerns, boundaries, and dreams about a topic with somebody before I even ask them to talk. So I have a chance to get clear and feel more confident in my perspective. So we use this all the time by ourselves. The other one is I use this all the time with people and they don't even know I'm using it.
That's
In the
great.
last 2 months, I have emailed family members about 40-year-old family problems, and I have structured the email using these 4 steps, asking them to email me back. That was a boundary. Like, "Will you
Mm.
email me back about these things? I would love to, like, engage with you." So that's a safer way to do it. Maybe you need to do it through a well thought out email.
That's a great idea. Were you surprised by any of the responses that you got?
Oh my goodness, Debbie, it was life-changing.
Oh, wow.
Stuff from my aunts and uncles. They were willing to engage with me about deep, old family wounds, and it was so healing. And now I can't wait to talk with them in person more deeply about these topics.
That's an amazing way to do it, and I bet it was really healing for them too.
They were so open, and they said, "We're so glad you wanted to know more about this." And, when you're together as a big family, I only get to see them once or twice a year in person, and there's like 50 people in the room. So you can't
Mm.
have these deep conversations often.
Right, right. I love that. I love the space it opens. I love the clarity it brings, the healing it brings. What do you want to make sure everyone knows as we wrap up?
This 4-step conversation it's been one of the simplest, most useful tools in my life. I've shared it with friends who, my friend who wrote the introduction to our book, Rebecca, mom of 5. She's an entrepreneur. Her husband's an artist. She's like, this saved my marriage. And it's
Wow.
changed how I have high level negotiations in my business. So it helps you uncover and go into areas that you might have forgotten to cover in the past. It helps you be a master in communicating effectively and fairly, which we so need right now.
Oh my gosh. And in so many different areas of life. Okay, everybody, the book is Radical Alignment. This is Alex Jamieson, the author, co-author with her husband, Bob. Where do we go to learn more about you, about the book?
You can go to radicalalignmentbook.com and see all kinds of stuff about the book. I love to hang out on Instagram personally, so I'm just at Delicious Alex there if you want to engage with me and see like how we use it. I'm often posting about how we're using the conversation there. But just check out the book. You can get it anywhere you get books. So go get it.
And I love it. I remember reading, Bob had a conversation with one of his clients in a cab, and then the cab driver thanked him profusely for
Yeah,
what he learned while eavesdropping.
yeah, the driver heard him take a friend or a client through the conversation, and the driver's like, that was really useful. Thanks.
So powerful stuff, everybody. Alex, I want to thank you so much. I know this is such a useful tool, an amazing book. I recommend it so highly, and just thank you for the amazing work you're doing.
Debbie, same to you. It's an honor to be featured on your platform. I so respect the work that you do. I appreciate you having me.